thank you, Remote Ken. We appreciate that. And just to, here, I'll just bring it back to the very first image. Just to orient where this is, as you can see, this is 280 kind of running under there. Here's the mobile home park, and here's the Century Theaters over here, and Santana Row is over there. So the reason we thought this would be appropriate to share at this presentation is because VTA is going to be talking about the 280 study, the Winchester study, transportation and circulation in our area, and a potential off-ramp coming right off onto Winchester. And what better time to really talk about, big plans like that and big ideas is how can those big ideas really shape into something that creates something really, move the needle really far from quality of life and imagination and what we can really imagine for our community here. And so these, like Ken said, these are long-term plans and long-term visions. These aren't going to happen overnight. It's not next year, not even next council session. But these things are something that we have to plan together as a community and think about what do we really want to have here now that we have this kind of engine of Westfield's Valley Fair and Federal Santana Row and the continued expansion and growth and innovation that they're going to bring to our area and development and change. What can we do to help balance that and grow that and embrace that in such a way that it doesn't crush our quality of life, that it doesn't really bring down what we want from our neighborhoods? And I would just suggest that if we really look at this with open eyes and say, okay, let's look at the development changes that are happening and the traffic that is going to continue to come into our neighborhood. What are we going to do to embrace that in such a way that will make it enjoyable? Because right now we are feeling the opposite of that. I think we're feeling the challenges, the frustrations, the traffic anxiety of going out on Winchester and Stevens Creek. I'm guessing probably more than half of you probably avoid that intersection on a regular basis based on your experience there. What can we do to really change that? Does there any feedback or comments from the group? Yes.
Being that we're in California, earthquake country, how is capping a freeway as far as earthquakes?
So so that's a seismic engineering thing. I will say that Related, that's doing in Manhattan, which is going on City Place, they're building a platform over a good chunk of that 239-acre parcel that they're building, and they're going to be putting structures on top of that. If any, I think there are structural ways to handle that without concern for earthquakes. I mean, if you look at San Francisco, they have some pretty tall structures over there. This is just, you just imagine it, this is like an underground garage, there's just stuff moving through it. But I'm not an architect, a seismologist, or any of that stuff, so please. Yes, sir.
In New York, it's a huge project, but it's done by one contractor, one developer. Doesn't have to argue with a lot of people. He's doing whatever he wants, he does the right, and he will do it the same way Santana Row was built. So if we get a consensus that this should work, we need to find a developer which they can do it and not impacting 200,000 people getting ideas what to do and how to do it.
So the comment for those who couldn't hear is, in New York, Hudson Yards is being developed by the related companies, one private entity versus potentially a lot of entities that would deal with something over this space. And I think that makes a lot of sense. That's something that is part of the discussion and planning session that I think we all need to embrace. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I have a question specific to the project right there. It's easy to understand how the traffic can go under whatever the development is going north and south of 280 because it already does that. But it seems that it would be pretty tricky to figure out how the traffic north and south on Winchester would pass through the development. Wouldn't that be one of the technical difficulties?
I think those are all challenges that would come into a design, but I would suggest that doing something like this, and then I don't want to spend too much time on this because we want to get to VTA, but I did allocate 15 minutes on top of the 5, so we still got 4 minutes. What this kind of concept or design looks at is the idea of taking cars off of the surface streets before they even get there. So cars that could come off of here. Right now there's an exit ramp right now, and there's a little bit of land right over there, right by the trailer sailing for sale place right over there. If you think of that as part of the land mass, and cars coming off of there, instead of turning onto Winchester, they could turn right into a parking structure right there. And they could have a people mover if they're going to Santana or Valley Fair. A people mover could take them and their car could get automatically parked and they can move somewhere else or shuffled or walk somewhere else. And same in the other direction, since they're talking about an exit off of 280, there's no reason that that exit couldn't be incorporated onto a platform and that goes right into a parking structure.
I was really thinking of the traffic flowing north and south on Winchester itself.
Right, so this becomes an at-grade experience, and then you have a regular crossing that occurs. But again, the goal is to get cars off of our surface streets as much as possible, or circulate them effectively, which I think is what BTA is going to get into. I'm not going to try and get involved in that. I think there's one other, Chris.
Yeah, I think this is actually especially timely because of the large-scale development that's going to be happening in Santana Row West. The time to plug this in is now. Because if you don't develop this in parallel, we're going to see what we saw already with Santana Row, where it went in without the interchange improvements that just made it pure hell until recently when they finally completed them. And in addition to this, if you want to give a quick cost comparison, that one pedestrian flyover over 280 right near Winchester, that's an easy $1 million. Think about it. You cannot build something like that for less than $1 million. And so, yeah, even if it's $100 million, look at the amount of utility you get out of that instead of one stinking pedestrian flyover.
And on that note, we'll close this particular thing. This is, again, food for thought for your brain to digest while we're talking about VTA and what their plans are for the future. Because they're not here to talk about next week or next month. They're here to talk about the next few years or even decade. So with that, we're going to go on to the VTA's presentation. Casey, and I'll bring up your presentation now.